Hello, business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and corporations. Welcome to the Black Business Network. My name is Jamila Burrell. I am your business moderator for this session on the Black Business Network. The Black Business Network is a 24-hour business network showcasing Black businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders worldwide. We have speakers from North Carolina, London, Singapore, Africa, Japan, and cities all over the United States. The Black Business Network is a global community sharing its business knowledge to empower, inspire, and educate businesses about business. Our first speaker is Edward Fairley. Edward L. Fairley is the founder and CEO of No Love Inc. He brings vast wisdom and experience in relationships, coaching, and counseling service to the company and the world. He is the author of the Handbook for Increasing Your Relationships IQ, a product of years of research into relationship intelligence. No Love Incorporation is a realization of Mr. Fairley's passion for an all inclusive, discreet, self serving, proven method of relationship counseling that is fun and simulates real life experience. Hence, his invention of the No Love board game simulation. Edward also shares elaborate teachings on identifying the true essence of love and practical communication on his No Love podcast. Mr. Fairley has been happily married for 2 decades and has 3 lovely children. I present to you Edward Fairley.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Awesome. I'm so glad to have you here. We're going to be doing a fireside chat with Mr. Fairley. So are you ready?
I'm most certainly ready. Yes.
Awesome. I'm excited to be interviewing you today. My
Thank you.
first question for you is, what inspired you to develop the no love triangle concept, and how
Uh,
does it form the foundation of your business model?
Great question. Uh, the no love triangle concept, I needed a simple way to break down the philosophies of my company, uh, as well as a way to assist in clients understanding and identifying where they are in the process of the relationship evolution process. So that was the reason why I created the no love concept, and that is the foundation of my business model because relationships is business. So you can't separate the two, which makes me doing business easy because I am the epitome of what relationships are, and that's what I teach.
That's awesome because relationships is networking, correct?
Yes, ma'am, most certainly.
Okay. So my second question is, how did you experience a relationship coach lead to creating the No Love board game as a relationship stimulator?
So what I found as a coach and a counselor is there are 4 hurdles that a counselor has to deal with when they're approaching counseling. One, people don't want to tell you their business. Surprise. Two, if they do tell you their business, they don't tell you everything. That probably scared me the most because if you think of it as a physician, if you're prescribing drugs or a solution to someone's problem and they omit something, that could drastically change the actual solution or the drug, which can actually kill them because of what they omit. And I thought about that as a counselor. If I'm knowingly listening to people who I know and I can sense they're omitting some information, when I share what the solution to the problem is, I could literally kill their relationship, i.e., cause them to have a divorce. And then thirdly, the person that gets feedback first or an opportunity for correction, so to speak, they typically feel like they're being double teamed and they don't want to play anymore. And then lastly, which makes number 3 bad, is the opposite sex of the counselor typically assumes that you're going to be biased towards the same sex. So if they are the first person that has an opportunity for correction, it only affirms their assumptive bias, and then they really shut down because they say, "I knew she was going to be on your side because she's a woman," or "I knew he was going to be on your side because he's a man." So what I did was I took years off of counseling and I took every single thing that I can know, every single thing that I knew about counseling issues, problems, and I created a simulation that addressed all of those issues. So when the person plays the simulation, I don't have to ask them what their problems are, what their business is. When that landing space or that card or scenario makes them feel uncomfortable, that's them telling them that that is their problem. And we all know that in the 12-step program, the first step is you telling yourself you have a problem. So if that card or situation made you feel uncomfortable, that's you admitting that that is your problem. And then it has the solution embedded in it, or the counseling, which in turn allows for you to discreetly resolve your issue. So that is what my experience of coaching did to lead me to creating the simulation.
As far as the simulation, do you play it by yourself or is it with a group of people? Is it with your spouse? When should you use this game?
That's a wonderful question. So the board game simulation, it is from 1 player to a 6 player. So you can play it by yourself. Some people actually just sift through the cards and read, and they get change or opportunity for change there as well. But as I shared, you can play up to 6 people. You can play with a partner. I have clients that are not in relationships. I have successful clients that aren't in relationships that use the concepts that they learn through my coaching in their business to allow for them to succeed in business. Because as I shared earlier, relationships, they bleed over to any kind of business, home, marriage, dating, or being by yourself, because you have to first love yourself in order for you to effectively love another person.
That is so true. I can't wait to get that game. Um,
Okay.
can you explain your be plus do equals have philosophy and how it transformed your relationship?
Oh, great question. So how do I conceptualize this in a simple way? So for one, to summarize it, the core of your essence of your being, i.e., the be portion, will guide the intent behind your doing or your actions, which will determine what you have or are able to maintain. So let me kind of give you an idea as to how that works. So if my wife is working for 2 weeks overtime and I can tell that she's tired, so by the end of week 2, I decide to set her up with a massage after work and her favorite meal being prepped and cooked. And after the meal, there's a hot bath or bubble bath set up, and she comes home to flowers and cards. And at the end of the day, I just let her relax and go to sleep. She's going to be appreciative of that, right? Now, let's use the same concept. And then at the end, when she's done, I say, now that that day is done, you see everything that I did. So you know what I expect for you to do for me later. Now I've ruined that entire experience. I've tainted the experience. So what I mean by that, so the being of me and the second scenario was me being a selfish individual who did everything with the intent of me getting something in return. It's so it looked the same. The initial setup or scenario that I gave you, it was a loving gesture. I saw my wife was struggling. She was going through a long week, and I wanted to accommodate her by, for one, showing her that I saw her. Two, giving her a way to kind of recoup and rejuvenate herself from a long 2 weeks of working, and I wanted her to rest. That's love. That is a giving concern that I did toward my wife. The second one was all about me and the being aspect. So typically, what we try to do as coaches or counselors, we tell people what to do. But if the core of you is tainted or selfish, then even when I tell you the right thing to do, it's not going to yield you successful results. So we need to work on the core, the being of you, so that your actions align with that being, which in turn will allow for you to have a successful relationship. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. You got to first start with yourself.
Exactly.
You got to first look at
Exactly.
yourself before you can be. Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. Look, you just dropped knowledge right there. With divorce rates at 40 to 50%, how does No Love Inc. approach relationship education differently than traditional counseling?
So we kind of address that. We are the only company that has the relationship simulator. So uh, the simplest way to say it is Good judgment comes from experience, but experience comes from bad judgment.
Mm.
So, so
Say
what
that one
we've
more
done,
time. Say that one more
uh,
time.
all
Slow
right,
it down for 'em. One
yes,
more
yes,
time.
ma'am. So, good judgment comes from experience,
Hmm.
and experience comes from bad judgment.
Wow.
You don't learn from success, you learn from your failures. No one can learn from success. You have no idea what caused you to be successful, but when you mess up, you learn that okay, I don't touch a hot stove, it will burn me. That's from a failure, which allow for you to gain good judgment through that experience. So, with our simulation, we've created an environment through gameplay that allows for you to have bad judgment experience, which gives you experience that changes your core and then gives you good judgment because of the experience through the condensed simulated process. So that is where we differ. Most companies or counselors, they're telling you what to do, but they're not assisting in you having a moment of failure that is going to leave you feeling emotional. So through the simulation, you're playing the game, you're going back to single, you literally get divorced. You have all of these experiences. You watch people surpass you through getting in a relationship, getting married. You're still stuck in dating. You get frustrated, you lose 2 turns, you lose 3 turns, or you get a divorce while you're watching everyone surpass you or evolve in their respective relationships. But all of these feelings that come as a result of that are leaving experience, real life experiences. Though it's a simulation, it feels real to you, and you're gathering the information and wisdom through hours, which takes people years and 17 or 6 or 5 relationships to gain the wisdom that you're gaining through the simulation. So that is where we drastically differ from other coaches and counselors.
Wow. So you allow me to look at what I experienced, my hurt, all these things, and then deal with it.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
most
it's all
counselors
embedded
just
in the
tell
simulation.
you how to fix it, but not how do you address what you felt at that very moment.
Which is so cool about it. So when you play the simulation, you don't even have to admit that's your problem. If you have a good poker face, you can feel it and then see how do I resolve this or where did this come from? Because the core, the rooted issue behind that action or circumstance is embedded in the simulation. So you get the knowledge as to how to fix it, where it came from, what you need to address, and you can do that discreetly. You don't have to confess. Your spouse or someone might be able to say, "Hey, that seems like you." But oftentimes when people play the simulator, the what I hear the most is you stepping on my toes or ooh, this card is serious. But you wouldn't say that unless you saw yourself in it. And oftentimes when people they're in coaching or counseling, they typically go to coaching and counseling to point to their spouse and say, see, this is what you need to fix. In my counseling, every testimonial is I saw myself. I saw where I went wrong, which you can fix that. You cannot fix someone else's actions or lack thereof. And that's where true change comes from.
Wow. I like that. I like that it allows me to examine myself, go
It
fix
forces you.
myself.
It's not even
Let
allowing. You are forced. It is a mirror. You have to see
Wow.
yourself. You can't duck it.
Wow, that's y'all gotta go get that game, y'all. Um, how does your background influence your unique approach to relationship? I'm sorry. Next question. You just answered that.
It's okay.
What motivated you to write the handbook for increasing your relationship IQ? And how does it complement your other offerings?
So the short answer to that is once I realized because the book itself came as a result of a failing marriage. So with my marriage failing, I troubleshot my marriage and had these aha moments and realizations that allowed for my wife and I to become best friends when we were really in a dark place and ready to throw in the towel. So when I came to all those realizations and then I started to share those concepts with my circle of friends and colleagues and it helped them, I realized that it wasn't special to our relationship. It was actually universal truths. And we had become the so much best of friends that we became that couple that it got on people's nerves how we interacted with each other. and they were hating on us, but to us that was a good thing. But I wanted what I was able to have to be shared with everyone else. So I took the time to write out what it is that I realized that was causing the issues in our relationship that allowed for us to evolve into best friends and wonderful mates and partners. And I put it in a book. It's called The Handbook for Increasing Your Relationship IQ. It did so well that it ended up being adopted as the prerequisite of marital counseling to other coaches and doctors that ran marriage counseling centers. And then that put me on a speaking circuit. So that is what caused me to become a coach and a counselor, and which in turn evolved into me realizing those four things that we discussed earlier that led me to create the board game simulator to complement that. So this actually doesn't complement the other stuff. It helps you to better understand what it is you're going to go through when you play the simulation.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said that you were on the brink of divorce. What made you say, I don't want to go through with this? I got to change something about myself. What made you not get stuck in that moment of like depression, anger, hurt, whatever it might have been? What made you say, I can't go down like this? I don't want to lose this.
That's a great question. Honestly, I wasn't there. So let's start there. I was ready to throw in the towel. We both were ready to throw in the towel. But interestingly enough, at the time of our dark time of our relationship, I was a technician for a telecommunications company. And I was thriving as a technician with that telecommunications company. And I was literally sitting on my fraternity brother's couch because we had such a dark night that day that I left my house and went and stayed at my frat brother's house, slept on his couch. And I was thinking to myself, man, how is it that I'm thriving at work, but I'm failing at relationship? And I realized that what they teach you as far as troubleshooting issues, whether it be a TV, data, or telephone, was go to where the problem is, ask them, hey, what's going on? They'll share. And then from there, you would measure the signal at that location. And then you will work your way back to see if the signal fluctuates until you get to a good signal. If you find good signal, you will find also that it's either a bad line, coaxial cable, a bad splitter, anything in between that's causing issues with that signal's fluctuation. And so if you keep troubleshooting, you'll get to the root of it, fix it, and solve it. So I don't know what made me say to myself, why not take that approach on my marriage? But I did. So unbeknownst to my wife, I started troubleshooting my marriage. The marriage was where the problem was. So I started checking what would cause the issues. And interestingly enough, I found so many things that I was taught to bring to the relationship by professional counselors that were actually contributing to the philosophies that led to us having issues in our marriage. From there, I was smart enough to realize how detrimental those philosophies were, snatch those out at the root, which in turn caused me to have a better signal. But when troubleshooting, you have to find a good signal. I said I found a better signal. So that forced me to actually have to troubleshoot when we were in a relationship because I did not find a good signal. So I started troubleshooting, just thinking about the whole relationship process, how we got there. And then I started and realized a bigger aha moment like, oh my goodness, how did I not notice this thing contributing to what actually caused more problems in the actual marriage? And I snatched it from the root. Because again, at that point, mentally, you're mature enough to start realizing these things are not benefiting the relationship. So I snatched it. Again, I found a better signal, which in turn improved the relationship. My wife doesn't even know this stuff is going on. But I didn't find a good signal again. So I had to go and I started troubleshooting when we were dating. And oh my goodness, I found like, oh my gosh, how in the world did I not see this as a contributing factor to the relationship, which in turn bled over to the marriage. Snatch that at the root, then it was a drastic change, but still not a good signal. So now I had to troubleshoot when I was in relationships with other women, and I came to the same conclusions that I came to with my wife, which again was not the good signal, which forced me to have to troubleshoot myself. And there I found a lot of insecurities. There I found a low self-esteem. And there, with the mental maturity that I had, I was able to identify how ridiculous the thought processes that led to my low self-esteem and insecurities were, snatch those at the root, fall in love with myself, become a friend of myself. And then that bled over to a good signal, which transitioned over to our relationship. And we have been the best of friends ever since. So that me being a technician is what led me to being what it is that I am now.
Wow. Started with yourself. You ain't point
And it
fingers at her.
all
You
started
looked
with
at
myself.
you.
Exactly.
You looked at your past experience. You looked at past relationships
Exactly.
and found a solution.
Now remember the theme now, all my testimonials are I saw myself. So clearly I've taken my process and I've subtly put it inside of the simulation so that they too can go through the same process that I went through so that they can see themselves snatch everything from the root and then find love and friendship for themselves and then let that bleed over into their relationship.
Awesome. Awesome. And then you also said, so this is all in the handbook also, that they can get also along with the simulation to build on.
So you can get the handbook first. Yes, ma'am. So what I found with the handbook was it was foundational. I thought I would be able to solve the problem through the book, but then people kept asking me, well, when's the next one? Now, as flattering as that sounds, I'm very critical and hard on myself. So I'm like, why would they ask for more if I took care of the problem? But what I didn't. I gave them surface level stuff, and we needed to go deeper, which is where the coaching came from. And then from the coaching came the actual simulation, which gives them a tangible and practical process that they can go through to get the results that the book laid the foundation for.
That's awesome. Awesome. Because we all want to know, how do I come out of this?
How do I? Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
What is the solution? How do I get free from this? How do I get a better business? So that's awesome that you notice that the handbook was surface level. Now the simulation means I got to go deeper. I like that.
Yes, ma'am.
How does No Love Inc. differentiate yourself in an industry with low barriers to entry?
Well, again, we've already kind of just said the simulation. There's no company that is doing a simulator, and conceptually, what we do is we match it. We call it a relationship flight simulator. So you know how pilots don't have to learn how to fly by crashing real planes. So now we've made it so that couples don't have to learn how to make their marriages soar by crashing into real divorces. So that's all we're doing. We've simulated the relationship process so that people don't have to really experience the tragedy of relationship in real life. They can get all of the training, do all of the failing through the simulation to avoid doing it in real life.
Awesome. How do you balance being both a relationship expert and a business owner?
Honestly, there's nothing to balance because relationships is business. So a lot of my clients are successfully single and use my concepts in their business. Actually, I was invited, one of my first clients, she did so well with the philosophies of my company that she ended up having NASA, which is who she worked for, hire me because they were having manager to employee issues. So I was hired to work for NASA to resolve their camaraderie issue and she just had me repackage the stuff that I told her in our relationship to make it business jargon, but it was the same exact stuff so that I can be hired into NASA to assist them with their communication issues, because it was really communication issues. So that's what I did. So I say all that to say relationships are in business, relationship is in your family, relationship is in your relationship, relationships are everywhere. You have to know how to relate, communicate, and for one, you have to love yourself to even be able to present yourself in a manner that you'll be received by others. So I don't
Awesome. I
have to
like
put
that.
on many hats. I only
Hmm.
have one hat, which works everywhere.
Which is relationship.
Relationships.
That's
Love,
what it all
really.
boils down to.
Love is what it really boils down to.
Yeah. Hmm. What strategies are you using to position No Love Inc. as a preventative rather than reactive solution?
Good. So, yeah, again, the simulation, it's allowing you to fail in the game so that you don't have to fail in real life. That is proactive. That is getting ahead of it and having you prevent the failure in a game before it happens in real life. It doesn't get any better than that. To be able to fail quickly and remove all of those years of failure with real people
Mhm.
by playing it through with a fictitious person in a simulation so that you don't have to bring that to your spouse or your future spouse, rather.
I like that. Practice before you fail.
There you go. Yes,
Read
ma'am.
about it before you fail. Think
There you
about
go.
it before you go through it. I
Yeah,
like
most
that.
definitely.
What inspired you to focus on relationships as your business niche?
I love to teach.
Mm.
I that is ultimately what I am. I am a teacher. I simulate everything. This simulation is not the first simulator. As far as my children, I simulate life. One of the things that bothers me the most is to hear a parent say, "That's okay. You'll get it when you get out in the real world when you grow up." I'm like, why not bring the real world to them? Simulate it in your household so that when they get to the real world, they're already equipped and they're like, "Oh, this it was hard at my house." This is simple to me. So that is how I my philosophies as far as life and everything, even down to my home. My job as a husband and as a father is to make my children and my wife as independent of me as possible. I think that's the most loving thing that I can do. I'll do anything for my children and my wife after I know they can do it for themselves. Because the last thing that I want them to do is if I transition, if I die first, for them to have to find a replacement of me because I did not equip them with the ability to do what it is that I was able to do for them. So I think that's probably the most loving thing to do. Not to mention, if I am not needed, then I know for certain that I'm wanted when chosen. And a lot
Wow.
of times, people,
Wait. Say that again real slow because a lot of people want to be needed.
exactly.
So say that
But
again.
if you are needed, you don't know that you're wanted. Matter of fact, that's why a lot of people who are wealthy have a hard time getting relationships because they don't know if they're being used for their finances or what have you. So they typically date people who share their same career path or their wealth so that they can at least have some kind of sense that I've actually been chosen. So I say all that to say I equip my children and my spouse to be able to do what it is that I'm able to do so that I know that I'm actually wanted as opposed to needed. I don't want to be needed. And I don't want them to actually get in a relationship where they feel like they need someone. That actually is choosing someone out of desperation, not even choosing someone. That's needing someone, literally. So if I create an environment that allows for you to love yourself and equip yourself to be self sufficient, then your choices are actually choices. They're not desperate decisions.
Wow. You
So
equipped
I
and
say all that to
trained.
say that's
Mhm.
why my niche is that. I'm very passionate about it. I love love, and I know that love literally conquers everything. If I solve the love issue, then I solve every other issue.
Wow. That's awesome. To equip and train someone is love.
Oh my gosh, yes, most certainly.
Wow. To give them
Think about
skills.
people who leave and they have to do GoFundMe's and everything like that and scramble to try to survive because you did not equip them to do what it is that you're able to do. I hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, my wife is on a vacation with her job. I haven't had a home cooked meal And I don't know what. Hold on, you're a grown man or a grown woman, and you haven't eaten properly because your wife is gone. Or the alternate. Oh my gosh, I gotta wait till my husband gets back because the grass and stuff needs to be cut, or the car's acting up. Like you don't know how to take care of that, which again means you're waiting for someone to replace that person to accommodate a need or a void that they left because they did not equip you with the information that they had so that they can move and be fine with you going. I'm not saying I want them to want me to leave, but I want them to be okay and decide to get someone else, not need someone else because I transitioned.
Wow, that's a nugget right there. Put that in your next book. Put that. Can you share a success story that validates your unique approach to relationship education?
Oh boy. This it doesn't sound like a success story, but it's my favorite success story. So I had a client who was, I knew before it happened that he was settling. And he chose this young lady and he moved her all the way from Maryland to Washington State and suggested that this is who he was going to end up with and be in a relationship with. And with that, he brought her all the way over there and they rented my game because at the time I was renting out the simulation for people to use and also to gather data and to prove that it worked. They rented the game, played the simulation, and realized through the simulation that they were not compatible. They were not the ones for each other. And he moved her from Washington State all the way back to Maryland. And they severed the relationship, which caused them to prevent themselves from investing in assets, having children, and all of those things that come with making a decision such as that. And then he ended up, because from there he started listening to the podcast, reading the books, and we conversed a little more. And he finally found his correct spouse, or the person that he was supposed to be with. And they've been married now for 3 years because of that philosophy. So he used it, realized he was in the wrong relationship, severed that relationship, which in turn, because he had the foundational information, he was able to find the right person. And now they are a success story because of that. So
Wow,
that's my favorite testimony
that's an
that it
amazing
prevented a
testimony.
relationship from
Mm-hmm.
coming to pass that
That's
shouldn't have been in the first place.
that's so awesome. What role does self-awareness play in your relationship coaching methodology?
It plays a major role. And the crazy thing about it is you'd be surprised. Many people are not self-aware. So let's think about it like this. People are looking for someone to give them or sustain their happiness when they're not even self-aware enough to give themselves happiness. So if you can't make you happy, how in the world do you expect another person to be able to give you happiness or even assist in sustaining? Because to be honest with you, happiness is a choice. And for you to look for it from someone else, that is a whole nother conversation, which this show does not have enough time to unpack. But self-awareness, if you can't articulate why you don't like this, why you feel this way, why you're not happy to where you can resolve it, then that's foundational, which is why that's the first thing we do. So when I have a couple, they come to me and they're married. We've been married for 15 years. One of the first things they say is, when we're playing a simulation, why are we starting in the dating phase? Everyone starts in the dating phase. Everyone starts the dating phase, dating, relationship, marriage, and then ultimately you get to know love. That's how the game evolves, and that's how the simulation works. So I asked them a simple question. I said, if you were to trip where you are right now, so you're standing up, you trip, will you fall right there or will you fall forward and land somewhere else? And they'll say, I'll fall forward and I'll land somewhere else. And then, so what happens is we trip, as I discussed the whole process of my dating process. We tripped at dating and we landed in marriage. So when we look up, we think that's where the problem lies. No, it's not how tripping works. We have to go back to where we tripped, start dissecting what caused us to trip back here and land here, and snatch all those things out of the root, and then get to the ultimate goal, which is a happy or successful marriage. And I always tell my clients before we start, my job is not for you all to stay together. My job is for you all to love yourselves. Now, if you loving yourself causes you to stay together, then I win. If you loving yourself causing you to separate, then I win. Because ultimately, you need to love yourself. And ultimately, what we want is for you to live together harmoniously as individuals.
That is so awesome. How do you address skepticism from couples who think board games can improve relationships?
Sit them down and let them play the simulation. But honestly, the evidence is in the games. That's actually the one of the most popular things that are going on right now. Playing board games, that's one. So now we've created an environment that allows for you all to come together, not so intrusive. You don't have to share your information, and now we can subtly address these issues. That's one. Two, one of the biggest things when it comes to YouTube is do it yourself. Now I've given you a tool that allows for you to do it yourself. You get to play and indirectly resolve your issues without having to share your information with someone else. So I've literally snatched every excuse as to why you don't go to counseling because it seems taboo and you don't want people to feel like you're crazy or whatever the stigma is behind what you say counseling is. I've taken all that away. You can suggest that you're just playing a game. Now I've taken away all the barriers that you typically would have to deal with so that you can now just go into something and really see and identify yourself to cause a successful change of events and change of situation. Not to mention, if I put you in an environment to where you feel now you can make a change of yourself, you have control. But if you're still struggling, trying to get him or her to change, you have zero control in that. You cannot control another person, but you can control you. And if I show you that you are the issue, that gives you empowerment that you can resolve. Your dad's not going to come back and apologize. Your mom's not going to apologize for what he or she did. The people that you actually think ruined your life, they don't even think that they did. They're sleeping well at night. So if I give you the ability to see that you can determine whether you're happy or sad and start loving yourself, I have given you empowerment that allows for you to change your situation, because now you have changed your perspective and now you're empowered to actually shift the dynamics of your circumstances.
Wow. So you're responsible for your happiness, not no one else.
That's literally a landing space. You lose a turn because you assume that your happiness is your spouse's responsibility. You lose a turn for that.
And then people that hurt you, they're not going to come back and say, "Ooh, I messed up," because they don't even know.
If you do say that, you just admitted that you have a problem. So you can do that. It's not a bad thing, but you don't have to.
Wow, this has been an awesome interview today. Like, I have really
Thank you.
got some nuggets I'm going to share with a lot of people. I want to just thank you. I want to thank you for your expertise. I want to thank you for your passion. I want to thank you for just coming and being a part of our show. So I want to give you the opportunity to share with the audience, how do we get in touch with you? How do we buy the game? How do we get the book?
Perfect. So the simplest way is KNOWLOVEinc.com. That's KNOWLOVEINC.com. So right now we are waiting. We have 1,005 units that are coming from China. So you can also email me at edwardlfairley@KnowLoveInc.com, and I can accommodate pre-orders that way, because we're as far as the site is concerned, we're holding off on allowing people to purchase the actual simulator until it actually comes, because I don't like to hold people's coins up like that. That's a very sensitive topic. So I'll give you the pre-order information through that email. And then from there, we'll let you know when it arrives. It's scheduled to arrive around February the 20th. That's when we'll start distributing locally. And then we go from there. The book is available anywhere. You can go to Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, anywhere online, and you can get the handbook for increasing your relationship IQ. And the No Love podcast, we have like 57 episodes that are there now. I had stopped doing the recordings and we're about to start sharing them a lot because we finally have reached our patent pending status for the board game so that people can't steal the idea, the concept. So we're now able to talk about it freely, which is why I took this interview. So we're doing a lot of things here at No Love, and I'm excited for the world because of this, because you all are my passion.
Awesome. I just want to remind everybody that genius is coming. And Mr. Aaron, I will see you on the other side.
Oh, wow, thank you.
The Black Business Expo mission is to raise funds for high school seniors going to college or K through 12 entrepreneurs. This expo is a fundraiser for students. You may go to www.blackbusinessexpousa.com to donate to the scholarship fund or use the Cash App that's on the screen below and say $BBX USA. Our goal is to give laptops and up to $5,000 to 10 students. They can register online at www.blackbusinessexpousa.com. Every dollar counts, so we want to remind you to donate to the scholarship fund. We want to thank our Black Business USA sponsors for September 2024-5. There's NC100, Suede Soul, Caroline, Virginia Minority Supplier Development Council, Step Management, Margie McLean Foundation Incorporation, Genius is Coming, Executive Women's Success Institute, the Quality Coaching Company, Superwoman Business Services, Creative Force Studios, Lee Entertainment, Black Business Olympics, Artistic App Design, Banks Law Firm, Black Business Expo USA. Genius is coming, and I'll see you on the other side.